these are the characters in my book. So African savanna elephants, they're having a very hard time at the moment, and I'm sure everybody knows that in the news, and that's because of demand for their tusks. People in particularly Asia want to turn them into carvings, and we get very frustrated about it, but we have to realize that this passion for ivory has been going on for centuries, and it was Europe that drove these populations to almost extermination in Africa in the 19th century. And in southern Africa, these animals were almost exterminated for commercial ivory. But over the years, in southern Africa and central Africa, there are parts of those areas where those populations have recovered, and recovered really well. And so if we go to some places, such as, for example, South Central Africa, Botswana is a good example. The head of that arrow sits within an area called the Kalahari Basin, or the Kalahari Sand Basin. And it's a vast area that was once inland sea. And the soil is basically sea sand, wind-blown sea sand that occurs in dunes, extinct dunes that you can see, which are now forested. The whole area of the Kalahari Sand Basin includes an area that you could fit Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado comfortably and have some wiggle room still. Vast area. Because it's sand, it's really not suitable for cultivation, and so the human population density is really low. There's not much demand for habitat. It was hunted out by about 1890 or so. There were virtually no elephants left in that area, and since then the elephant population has recovered. And in 1933, there was one herd of 33 animals in northern Botswana, 33 elephants. Now, the population exceeds 130,000 elephants. And so we've got this wonderful opportunity to conduct some science on this major ecosystem engineer that's recovering population size in this vast area, which is effectively still pretty wild. And the water resources are basically perennial rivers. There's very little artificial water, very little human settlement in that area. Comparatively peaceful in terms of war and all the other things that hassle Africa. And I was very lucky to be involved in research in this area for the last 15 or 20 years. With the recovery of the elephant population, what happens is that elephants eat trees. They're these big creatures that can eat on a grand scale. And with that population recovering in northern Botswana, they've been eating trees. And so there's a lot of concern among tourists, for example, who go to that area. And in the dry season, they see this now. This is what it looks like now in northern Botswana, near the main river systems. So there are these dead skeletons of dead trees standing there with pretty devastated looking vegetation all around it. And a lot of concern about what to do. Environmental degradation, poor management, etc., calls for culling. But of course, as an ecologist, I was thinking, maybe we should just do some research and find out what's really going on there. And I was very fortunate to be involved in a project funded by the Norwegian government, a long-term project which did two things. The one thing was to investigate the ecological effects of this recovering elephant population in the savanna ecosystem. The other one was to provide postgraduate training opportunities for people from Botswana to become wildlife ecologists, because until our project started, there were no PhD or master's qualified ecologists in the Wildland Department in Botswana. So we got this project going, funded by the Norwegian government and the government of Botswana. And it was a long-term project. It started 15 years ago. We've just published the book now. All the papers have been out, and we produced 5 Botswana PhDs, graduates, and 10 master's graduates from that project. And what we found is that it's not all devastation and destruction. In the wet season, it looks like this. So there's verdant green vegetation growing below the skeletons of the old trees that were killed by the elephants. But those old trees grew at the time that the elephants were decimated by ivory hunting. So you can age those skeletons and discover that there was a pulse of seeking recruitment at a time when the elephant population was artificially destroyed by commercial hunting. And so the state of the ecosystem at the time, that there were all these huge big trees all over this landscape that looked wonderful, was actually an artifact. And the system is returning back to a stable state that it was in before the heavy hunting. And some of the very early explorers that went into that area described the landscape as looking something like what it looks like now. And so what's very interesting for us as ecologists is to find that the verdant vegetation that's now growing up underneath these old dead trees is being very heavily impacted by elephants. It's drawing up nutrients from the deeper layers of the soil profile. And those nutrients are nutrients that elephants can actually access because they're these huge animals that are able to munch away on woody vegetation that no other animal can access. And so they're bringing nutrients from deep down in the soil, bringing them. They're brought up by plants, they take them out of the plants, they deposit them as dung, and they are these amazing agents of restoring ecosystem function. And interestingly, there's a lot of research now showing that the great whales in the oceans have a similar function, and the recovery of the great whales is associated with changes in nutrient dynamics in the great oceans that are very similar to the nutrient dynamics that elephants are now mediating in the Kalahari Sand Basin of South Central Africa. In addition to the effects in terms of nutrient cycling, the result is that by working that vegetation, turning it over, getting a really dynamic mix of different species, and driving productivity in the system, has been a recovery of many other species. So the impala, for example, were fairly uncommon in that area 50 years ago. They're very common there now. Lions were absent, they were shot out, they had disappeared. Lions have come back because there's no prey. Cheetahs, leopards have all recovered. And that system is just humming with life. And it's this amazingly dynamic system that it was a real privilege to be in. And so the answer is that no, there's no reason to cull. It's not mismanagement. The system is going back to a previous stable state. And we've actually learned a huge amount about how elephants actually drive savanna ecosystems. And in conjunction with the Zoological Society of London and Wiley Blackwell, we've now published this book. Myself and my two main colleagues, Christina Scarpa and Stein Moe, both Norwegians, we got together. I was on sabbatical in Norway 2 years ago, and we did this. And it was a great lot of fun for me. These guys don't speak great English, so guess who was doing all the proofreading? So it was a lot of work, it took a lot of time, but all 17 chapters have been peer-reviewed by 2 external peer reviewers, and all the copy editing, all that was done. Great collaboration, and it's just nice to have it out.